married her for money. A fat woman, with a smell he couldn't stand. But what he found was the kind of love that destroys every illusion of what love should look like. In a world that worships beauty, he discovered the sacredness of presence. In a marriage built on transaction, he stumbled into transformation. And maybe, just maybe, the woman he once feared was the very soul he was destined to find. When Jonathan first met Evelyn, he was at his lowest point. The world seemed to be closing in on him, debts piling up, job prospects dwindling, and a sense of hopelessness that clung to him like a second skin. He'd always imagined a different life for himself, one filled with adventure, romance, and meaning. Instead, he found himself in a cramped apartment with peeling wallpaper, eating instant noodles for dinner, and scrolling endlessly through job postings that never seemed to fit. It was during one of these late-night sessions that he stumbled upon an ad that would change the course of his life forever. The ad was simple, almost cryptic, seeking companion for marriage, substantial compensation. No prior experience necessary, discretion required. At first, Jonathan scoffed. It sounded like a scam, the kind of thing desperate people fell for. But as the night wore on and the silence in his apartment deepened, the idea took root in his mind. What did he have to lose? He sent a brief reply, not expecting anything to come of it. To his surprise, he received a response the very next day. The message was polite and straightforward, inviting him to a discreet meeting at a quiet cafe on the edge of town. Curiosity and desperation mingled in his chest as he prepared for the meeting. He dressed in his best, though still shabby, clothes, splashed water on his face, and tried to summon the confidence he hadn't felt in months. When he arrived at the cafe, he spotted her. Immediately, Evelyn was impossible to miss. She was a large woman, her presence commanding and undeniable. Her clothes were well-made but unfashionable, and her hair was pulled back in a severe bun as he approached. He noticed something else, a strong, pungent odor that seemed to envelop her, sharp and earthy. Unlike anything he'd encountered before, it was overwhelming. And for a moment, Jonathan hesitated. But her eyes met his, steady and clear, and something in her gaze compelled him to sit. Down their conversation was awkward. At first, Evelyn was direct, almost brusque, laying out the terms of her proposal with the precision of a business negotiation. She was wealthy, she explained, but her family had made it clear that she needed to marry in order to access her inheritance. She had no interest in romance, only in fulfilling the requirement in exchange for his cooperation. She would ensure that Jonathan was well taken care of his debts, paid a generous allowance, and a comfortable home. Jonathan listened, his mind racing. The idea of marrying for money had never appealed to him, but the alternative, continuing to struggle to watch his dreams slip further away, was equally unpalatable. He agreed almost before he realized what he was saying. The wedding was a quiet affair, attended only by a handful of witnesses. There was no joy, no celebration, only a sense of transaction. Jonathan moved into Evelyn's spacious home, a grand old house filled with antiques and the faint scent of her ever-present odor. He tried to settle into his new life, but everything felt strange and unfamiliar. The money was real enough, his debts vanished, his bank account filled, but the cost was constant discomfort. The smell was inescapable, clinging to his clothes, his hair, even his skin. He found himself avoiding Evelyn, retreating to the farthest corners of the house whenever possible. But as the days turned into weeks, Jonathan began to notice things he hadn't. Before, Evelyn was meticulous in her habits, rising early each morning to tend to the garden, her hands deft and skilled as she coaxed life from the soil. She spent hours in her library reading thick volumes on subjects Jonathan had never even heard of: ancient history, philosophy, obscure branches of science. She was fiercely intelligent, her mind sharp and restless. And when she spoke, there was a passion in her voice that surprised him. One evening, as he passed by the kitchen, he caught the sound of her singing softly to herself, a haunting, beautiful melody that lingered in the air long after she fell silent. He paused, listening, and for the first time felt a flicker of something other than discomfort. Curiosity got the better of him. He began to watch her more closely, observing the way she moved through the world with a quiet confidence. She was kind to the staff, generous with her time and resources, and fiercely protective of those she cared about. He noticed, too, that she never seemed to mind his presence, never demanded anything of him. Beyond the terms of their agreement, she treated him with respect, even when he was distant or irritable. One afternoon, as a storm raged outside, Evelyn found him in the library, staring blankly at a shelf of books. She invited him to join her for tea, and with nothing better to do, he agreed. They sat by the window, watching the rain lash against the glass, and for the first time, they talked not about money or obligations, but about their lives, their dreams, their fears. Jonathan found himself opening up in a way he hadn't in years, sharing stories of his childhood, his hopes for the future, the disappointments that had brought him to this place. Evelyn listened, really listened, her eyes never leaving his face when he finished. She shared her own story of a lonely childhood, a family that valued wealth over love, the isolation that had shaped her. She spoke of the ways she tried to find meaning, the passions that sustained her, and the pain of always feeling like an outsider. As the days passed, their conversations became more frequent, more intimate. Jonathan found himself looking forward to their time together, drawn to Evelyn's wit and intelligence. He began to see her not as an obstacle, but as a person, complex, flawed, and deeply human. The issue of her body odor, once so overwhelming, began to fade into the background. It was still there, but Jonathan found himself less bothered by it. He realized that he had grown accustomed to it, even found it oddly comforting, a reminder of Evelyn's presence, her reality. He discovered that she was aware of it too, and had long ago given up trying to mask it. It was simply a part of who she was, and she refused to apologize for it one evening as they sat together in the garden. Evelyn turned to him with a question that caught him off guard. "Do you regret marrying me?" she asked, her voice quiet. Jonathan hesitated, searching. "For the truth, at first I did," he admitted, "but now I'm not so sure. You're not what I expected." Evelyn smiled, a hint of sadness in her eyes. "Neither are you." Their relationship shifted after that. They became partners, not just in name but in spirit. Jonathan began to take an interest in the things that mattered to Evelyn: her garden, her books, her projects. He found himself helping her with the plants, learning the names of flowers and herbs, marveling at the way she could bring life to even the most stubborn patch of earth. He read some of her favorite books, struggling at first, but gradually coming to appreciate the depth and beauty of the world she loved. Evelyn, in turn, encouraged Jonathan to pursue his own interests. She helped him set up a small studio in the house where he could paint and draw to his heart's content. She introduced him to people who could help him find work, offered advice when he needed it, and celebrated his successes no matter how small as they grew. Closer, Jonathan began to see beauty in Evelyn that he had missed before. It was not the beauty of magazines or movies, but something deeper, a strength, a resilience, a kindness that shone through in everything she did. He admired the way she faced the world, unafraid to be herself, unapologetic in her differences. He realized that he was falling in love with her slowly and unexpectedly. One night as they sat by the fire, Jonathan reached for her hand. She looked at him surprised, and he saw a vulnerability in her eyes that touched him deeply. He squeezed her hand gently, and she smiled, a real, genuine smile that lit up her whole face. Their marriage, once a transaction, became a partnership. They faced challenges together, family members who disapproved, whispers from neighbors, moments of doubt and insecurity. But through it all, they supported each other, finding strength in their bond. Jonathan's life changed in ways he could never have imagined. He found purpose in his work, satisfaction in his art, and joy in the simple pleasures of daily life. He discovered that love could grow in the most unlikely places, that happiness was not about perfection, but about acceptance. He learned to appreciate Evelyn's quirks, her stubbornness, her fierce loyalty. He came to see her body as beautiful, not despite its size, but because of it, a testament to her strength, her vitality, her presence. He even grew to tolerate and eventually embrace the scent that had once repelled him. It was a part of her, a part of their life together. Evelyn, too, changed. She became more open, more willing to let Jonathan in. She trusted him with her fears, her dreams, her heart. She laughed more, sang more, and found joy in their shared life. Their home, once cold and silent, became a place of warmth and laughter. They hosted dinners for friends, filled the rooms with music and conversation. They traveled together, exploring new places and discovering new passions. They built a life that was uniquely theirs, shaped by their differences and strengthened by their love. Looking back, Jonathan realized that he had been given a gift, a second chance, a new beginning. He had married for money but found something far more valuable. He had expected discomfort, perhaps even misery, but discovered happiness and fulfillment. He learned that love is not always easy or obvious. It does not always come in the package we expect. Sometimes it sneaks up on us, growing quietly in the spaces between our fears and our hopes. Sometimes it asks us to look beyond the surface to see the person beneath Jonathan's story is a reminder that happiness is not about having everything we want, but about finding meaning and connection in the life we have. It is about embracing the unexpected, opening ourselves to new experiences, and allowing ourselves to be changed by love. He married a fat woman with strong body odor for money, but he never expected to find a partner, a friend, and a soulmate. He never expected to discover that the things that once seemed unbearable could become the very things he cherished most. He never expected to be happy. But he was in the years that followed. Jonathan and Evelyn built a life together that was rich in love, laughter, and meaning. They faced challenges, as all couples do, but they faced them together, drawing strength from each other. Jonathan became known for his art, his paintings capturing the beauty of everyday life. Evelyn continued. Her work in the garden, her flowers and herbs, the envy of the town. They supported each other's dreams, celebrated each other's successes, and found joy in the simple act of being together. Their love was not perfect, but it was real. It was built on acceptance, respect, and a willingness to see each other as they truly were. It was a love that grew stronger with each passing year, weathering the storms of life and emerging all the more resilient. In the end, Jonathan realized that he had found what he had been searching for all along, not wealth or comfort, but connection. He had found a partner who saw him, understood him, and loved him for who he was. He had found a home, not in a place, but in a person, and that he knew was worth more than all the money in the world. So if you ever find yourself faced with an unexpected opportunity, if you ever wonder whether happiness can be found in the most unlikely of places, remember Jonathan and Evelyn. Remember that love is not about appearances or expectations, but about seeing and being seen, about accepting and being accepted. Sometimes the greatest treasures are hidden in plain sight, waiting for us to look beyond the surface and open our hearts to the possibilities. And sometimes the life we never expected turns out to be the life we always need. This is Tales of Black, where stories aren't just told, they're felt in your bones, in your blood, in your silence. If this journey moved you, if it made you see love, life, or loss a little differently, then hit that subscribe button. Smash the bell so you don't miss what comes next. Because here at Tales of Black, we don't chase trends. We resurrect soul, one story at a time.